Hi, welcome to GASP.
Growing and Aging Sex Positive.
Get ready to grow with us as we discuss all things sex and sexuality related. I'm Nina.
And I'm Cari. Today, we're responding to questions from our listeners.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you too. What's on your mind? What questions or thoughts do you have about sex and sexuality? We'll be doing another episode like this again in the future, so write to us at gasppod@gmail.com. That's GASPPOD@gmail.com.
We want to thank our sponsor, Oak Park Our Whole Lives. Oak Park OWL has classes for kids in 1st, 5th, and 8th grade in the Greater West Side of Chicagoland area. Classes start in September and January each year. For more information, please go to their website at www.opowl.org.
Now let's get into it.
Hi, Nina.
Hi, Cari.
Should we disclose to our listeners that we were just lip smacking into our mics to start this
Microphones
episode?
are so fun.
They are. We're thinking about turning this into an ASMR podcast about sex called GASP. GASP. Would we have an audience for that? We might. It might not be the podcast about sex they were expecting, though. When we really got nerdy, we could like whisper moral dilemmas.
Whispering nerds. Yep.
That would be great. No, nobody's asked us for that, though, so I'll get it together. What are we doing today, Nina?
Cari.
If not ASMR sex podcasting, what are we doing?
This is our listener questions episode.
Woo!
Yes, we have been really looking forward to this.
We have. And hopefully there'll be more in the future. Please keep sending them to us.
Yes, absolutely. So our first question today is a full question. I don't know what that means.
As opposed to partial? I feel like you're going to lecture me about commas and semicolons now. It was a grammatically full question. I'm teasing you. I love it.
I might have missed it, but in the first episode, I didn't hear what qualifies you or what brings you to this topic. Can you explain where you are coming from and why we should listen to you?
Before we answer, I need to say that I had a really hearty laugh. I love this question because I have been listening to each of our episodes as they come out because this has been a labor of love. And I did really have that thought internally to myself, like, who are these women and what? Like, we define sex as our first episode. I was like, what qualifications do we have? Who even are we? Why? And we addressed that in episode 2 a little bit, but
it's very fair. First episode, we just jumped in.
We did.
And not really explaining who we are and why we're doing this.
Did we even know? I am joking, but I think it's fair to say this has been like a labor of love. And the topic of sexuality and sexual education is personal, even when it's not personal, even when it's professional, that sometimes it's a journey to figure out like why, like what problems I'm interested in and why I want to solve them. So I think it's valid that it took us a moment to get here. So who are you, Nina, and what qualifies you to talk about sex ed and sexuality?
Yeah, thanks, Cari. It has been a journey, and we're still on it.
Yeah.
So my backstory is what we're talking about, what came before the podcast. My story is that I am interested in relationships, and where that comes from for me, I have an academic background, which I have complicated relationship with. Because academia has its strengths, but also its limitations. And there's a lot of blood and sweat that has gone into my academic career. A lot of sacrifices that I frankly wonder sometimes whether it was worth it. My academic background is in philosophy. And I started studying philosophy from the time I was a senior in high school. and just really fell in love with it. So I have 4 degrees in philosophy.
Wow.
Yeah. More than anyone probably needs. But this is my story.
But if you loved it, why not?
Yes.
Who's to say?
Yes. That is part of it too. It also is hard to talk about because people have so many reactions to it. And sometimes people respond by saying, oh, I can't talk to you then in that case.
That was 1 degree too many, and now we're not friends.
Exactly. So it's something that I am sometimes hesitant to even bring up or mention. And that is a problem for me because sometimes it's important to mention, like here.
And it's your story.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is just who I am. So how that relates to relationships is that my dissertation was actually in philosophy of relationships. I won't get deeply into it because I'm still don't want to do that academic thing of just boring everyone with my own story. But I have long been fascinated with the dynamics of relationships, particularly the moral obligations that come out of our particular connections with particular other individuals, also the metaphysical connections. What does it mean to be in a relationship with a particular person as opposed to our relationship with humanity?
Yeah.
There's that. There's also a social dimension to that. What makes us as a group related to each other, even if we haven't even met each other. And then there are political relationships too. So all of those are part of my dissertation and my academic research. So I'm in the midst of all these things, and then I'm having children at the same time as you do. And my 3-year-old is asking me how I got pregnant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were super ready to answer that. And I had all the information you wanted.
It was on an airplane.
Love that for you.
So there are witnesses. We are packed in. There are people in front of me, people behind me. And no one's going anywhere.
And no one wants to be part of this, do they?
And my very bright, brilliant child is saying, but how did this happen, Mom? How did the baby get in there?
Yeah.
And I am stuck because I don't know how to answer in an age-appropriate way.
Yeah.
And so that started me on a path through that led me to start a sex education program in the town that I was living at the time. I started an OWL program. Our Whole Lives is an excellent sex education set of curricula that is a lifespan curriculum. So for me, that also intersects with my religious story because I am Unitarian Universalist and have been my whole life. And this is a curriculum that was created by the Unitarian Universalists in conjunction with the United Church of Christ. It is a secular curriculum, but it has faith supplements that are used in each of those denominations. I started an OWL program in the town that I was in at the time and started running that for a number of years, and then moved to the Chicago area to Oak Park and started a second sex education program for the community, which has really strengthened and grown over the years, and we're just about at completing our 9th year in existence. To tell that whole story is that I see those things as connected, right? These are all connected in my life, that I'm interested in what connects us with each other. I'm interested in what constitutes healthy connection.
Yeah.
And that, of course, means talking about sexuality. Sexuality is a form of intimacy and connection, a way to connect with other people. And so that's what kind of has brought me here. And then for me personally, there is a sacred element to that. The body is sacred and our relationships are sacred.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Cari, tell us about your story.
As I was reflecting on doing this episode, I was like, what do I say? Why am I qualified to do this? My academic background is still ongoing. I am not a person who followed a traditional academic path. I am a high school dropout who then put herself through her bachelor's degree with a toddler and a full-time job. I'm currently getting a master's degree in education, special education. I've stopped running, partially and thanks to Nina for calling me out and being like, you would be a really good teacher.
And you are. You're an amazing teacher, Cari.
Thank you. I have run from that for many years. Several of my family members were public school teachers, had long careers, and I was like, nope.
Yeah, it was not a good experience for you.
School was a dumpster fire for me.
Yeah.
A dumpster fire. Undiagnosed ADHD, vision problems, just all I just found being a young person very hard. And that culminated in me dropping out of high school. And I love learning, but school was very difficult for me. And then no matter what job I did, I was always in a training preceptor role. I was always creating material to teach people. I was always figuring things out and then sharing it with other people.
Yes.
I was a corporate trainer for a while. And I eked my way out of that into an analyst role. But really, I was still just doing consolidating information and giving it to people. And so I finally decided to stop running from that and do that professionally. And so far, I love it. And I think it really works. So that's my professional background. And then on my personal background, I think that I got to sex ed in a much more personal struggle trying to figure myself out away. I had a really challenging divorce and have found myself in my midlife. In the midst of the pandemic is when my divorce was happening, 2020 to 2023 time. And I found myself feeling like looking around, I didn't really like the state of the world. I didn't feel like the information that I had gotten about relationships and sex was good. I didn't feel like it had benefited me. And I thought it could be really great to be part of the solution instead of just having bad feelings about what I got.
Woohoo.
Yeah. And so I started volunteering for your organization, Oak Park Our Whole Lives. And I started with the babies, the kindergartners and the first graders. And I just found that so deeply gratifying. And I think the part that has drawn me to sexuality is that it's so human. It's how we all got here, right? Everybody was bored.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. It's the thread that unites all of us. And especially with the younger kids class, I think what's really interesting about that is that they're asking profound questions about who they are and their place in the world, right? It's not really about, quote, sex. And so I just feel like I'm going to get
But it's all about sex.
Literally. I don't know. This quote gets attributed to different people at different times, but it resonates for me so hard. And I don't know whose actual quote it is, but it's everything is about sex except sex, which is about power. And I feel like that really is what I feel about the world. And so qualifications-wise, I've been through the Oak Park Our Whole Lives training. I can now officially say I have training in education, and I am an educator. Yeah. And I also feel like a lot of what we're trying to do here is community building. That's my hope for this podcast, is less about having all the answers and being an expert and giving you scientifically expertise, and more about creating space to talk about topics. And that I am qualified to do because I'm a human. Because we have lives, right? And it's complicated.
Yeah, I think that is so important. And there's so many. I love how our stories represent such different paths for education. Both are totally valid, as people say.
Yeah.
And it's not a philosophical term. That's not a philosophical way to use the word valid.
Okay.
But that's okay.
I didn't know that. I say that all the time. It's so new age. That's totally valid. You're so valid. Yeah.
Yep. And that's great. And I know what you mean. And I'm just letting my nerd part show up. And yes, so part of what we want to do with the podcast is just model a conversation about sex and sexuality. Ask these questions that many people have. We've been sex educators for a number of years now. I've been doing it now 12 years.
Wow.
And one of the things that happened almost as soon as I became a sex educator was that people just really came to me with their stories.
Yes.
Almost like a switch had happened.
Yeah.
Suddenly they had permission to share things with me
You're
that
safe.
they would not have. And they really had things that they wanted to say, that they wanted to tell about their lives, or questions that were really burning inside them, but they didn't have a place to take them.
There really is no place. I have a sticker that was one of the Oak Park Our Whole Lives stickers that's like pretty bright and colorful rainbows, and it says Sex Ed Saves Lives, and then it has our logo on it.
Yes.
And it's slapped on my water bottle. I can't tell you how many people use that as a way to stick a foot through the door to say what they really want to say to me and tell me their story. Sometimes it's about sex. Sometimes it's like really not about sex, but I'm like giving them permission.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's wild. I think that's such a like beautiful experience when you're like in this space.
That's
because
amazing.
You said sexuality is sacred.
Yeah.
I am right there with you. I feel like it is so sacred and also like it's divine. It's also very human.
Yes.
And I love that.
Oh, there's no difference to me, but that's a whole other story.
I think we actually agree. I totally agree on that. Sometimes, folks, Nina and I approach things from very different perspectives, but I totally agree.
I love it.
To be human is to be divine.
And just to be clear, the program is totally secular.
Yeah.
This is just this is time for personal stories. So.
For sure.
Our episode about many questions that have come. We have other questions to talk about too, Cari.
We do. What are we doing next? Where are we going?
Our next one was, please talk about sex toys and dating. So that's fun.
That is fun.
Yeah. Bit of a transition. Specifically, this person says, should you use condoms on sex toys? So I'm imagining a situation where this might be a sex toy that is being shared or might be shared, or you don't know the sexual history of this toy. And then a related question is, can you reuse toys that someone might have used with someone else? Or should you bring your own sex toys to the party, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, they're super valid questions. One thing that I guess I will share that's like talking about qualifications and personal, because I got divorced in my midlife and I'm out dating in the world, a lot has changed since I was a teenager. Not that I really dated as a teenager, but a lot of these questions, I feel like people don't have spaces to talk about this. You hope you have a good friend that you can like, that's also out like dating, and that you can talk with them about it, but it's super like difficult to get answers to these. So I did a little bit of research, and by research, I want to say like before I answer the question, and I do have some thoughts on it from others, I wanted to know what people felt about it. So I went online to a couple of dating groups and forums that shall remain nameless.
Sure.
Because they are supposed to be nameless to preserve their safety. I didn't find any spaces that were really for men. Obviously, I don't know the gender of every anonymous poster ever on different forums, but mostly women asking this question. And man, was it polarizing. Specifically, the question about in casual dating and casual sex, can you use toys that like a new partner has that they already own? It also comes up a lot for people that are not heterosexual, women who have sex with women. And it's really wild to me. Some people were so disgusted by just the thought of it and basically said I would never let a sex toy that hadn't been purchased for me near me. And then other people were like, yeah, this is like a totally normal part of my sex life. So I just want to put that out there, that it's really fascinating and that nothing that I'm going to say is in any way a judgment about the choices that people make. I think because there are often not safe forums to have these conversations, everyone is doing what they think is right for their body and in the situation that they're in. Having said that, I do want to go on record and say that sex toys can harbor bacteria, spores, viruses, things that could create an STI, just like a body part could. So when we think broadly about this, you do need to have an answer to the question if you're a person who is out there having sex with new partners or a partner brings out a toy that they've already purchased. So the broad categories would be, is the material that the toy is made from porous or non-porous? If something's porous, it means it has lots of little holes in it. Those spores and bacteria can get inside of it and they can live there, and then they can be transferred from person to person. They're not great for sharing.
So just like any other way in which a sexually transmitted infection might be shared.
Yeah, just like skin. So things like rubber, PVC, anything that's a blend of silicone and PVC, which I don't want to get too graphic on here, but like a lot of times you'll see those on sex toys that are labeled as like lifelike or flesh-like. They'll have a blend of the silicone and the PVC. That's porous. Don't use that. Don't swap it around. Anything like latex or fabric too. So leather. And really even things that aren't going to be like inserted internally, you still want to be careful with leather because skin on skin contact, right? It's leather to skin.
You can still transmit certain kinds of infections.
Exactly.
Without.
Exactly. A no-go. There's a gray area here. I found some sex educators and some information that people will use condoms for insertion on those toys. I think that's up to the user, and it depends. Is the toy something that you can easily put a condom on? That's something that I would consider. And then ideally, you want non-porous materials. So if you're thinking about investing in sex toys and you want them to be easy to sanitize and use with multiple partners with their consent, you want plastic that's made of ABS. You can Google it. And actually, if you're looking at sex toys, they usually label their materials very clearly. Glass, you need to make sure that it is glass that is made to be inserted in your body. So it should be break resistant and it'll be labeled. Yes. And you can Google this and look it up.
That was a new one to me.
The same material that they make Pyrex out of. Oh. And I'm going to go on record and say that those are really durable sex toys, and they're also fun for temperature play. Nice. So you can heat them up and cool them down. Some people love them.
Cool.
100% silicone. Really careful of the blends. 100% silicone. It's got to be full silicone or it's porous.
So 100% silicone is safe.
Is safe.
Or
can
safe.
Be sanitized.
Can be sanitized.
I should back up and say nothing is 100% ever in the entire world. Right. So it is non-porous and it's something that you can sanitize. And then metals. Metals are easy to sanitize. And then the last thing that I found that I had never thought of that I just want to throw out there is that even if something is non-porous, it still needs to be cleaned and sanitized. And if it has texture with a lot of grooves in it, that's harder. So
the design of the toy is also something to consider.
It's got a lot of texture and a lot of ridges, even if it's made from 100% silicone. If that's something that's really difficult to clean like bodily fluid off of, it's not as easy to sanitize. The other thing, I will just go on record and say, I think realistically, even a non-porous toy in a casual sexual encounter, you would need to know going in that it's not 100% safe or like 100% that the person has sanitized it in the way that you would sanitize it. You haven't seen the box of the toy, so you can't easily confirm the materials. Or there's a lot of other stuff under that.
So those would be reasons why it's beneficial to bring your own.
So this is what I'm going to say an opinion. This is, we've talked about our qualifications. My opinion is the easiest thing if you're having casual sexual encounters is to buy your own sex toys that you like and research the materials, research how you sanitize and clean it, and bring them with you and ask for consent from your partner and let them know what they're made out of, what your research was, and how you clean them. I think that's my picture.
So do you have recommendations around what sanitizing means? Is it just soap and water?
It depends on the material.
Okay.
So there are sex toy cleaners. Almost all of the sort of articles that I have read, you can use soap and water, but like silicone needs certain soaps and waters that aren't going to break down and degrade the silicone. Oh. So you need to look at the box of the toy that you purchased. And also, I know that this is awkward, but there are a lot of sex toy shops, and usually the people that work in them are so jazzed to talk to you about it. If you really want to know and toys are your thing, invest in a good toy and go talk to an expert at a toy store, sex toy store. Don't go to a toy store and talk to them about dildos. They won't like that. But they'll tell you how to clean it safely, and they'll tell you what lubes you can use with it, because I also want to go on record and say lubes and condoms are made of different materials, and you need to make sure that you're not going to create friction and break a condom with a sex toy, same way you would with any body part, a penis that you put a condom on. So you can do your research, and if you absolutely cannot fathom going into a toy shop to talk to someone, most websites, Babeland is a like female-owned one that has a great web page. There's many great resources. You can look at the specs of a toy and it will tell you what material it's made out of, any like safety protocols, and it'll usually tell you how to clean them. That's my do your research like you would like any other part of your life.
And it's not complicated research.
No.
Is what you're saying. It's just read the instructions in the box.
Literally read the instructions on the box, and thank God for the internet, because like you can actually just like Google things and get like pretty solid information. Like,
it's great.
Yeah. Much easier than pre-internet.
I love that point about sex toy stores, or adult stores as they get called sometimes, that there are a lot of very knowledgeable people there, and it can be a place for real sex education to happen for adults.
For sure.
There's one in Chicago called Early to Bed.
Yes.
So
I said that too enthusiastically. I take back my yes. I think it's really awesome that there's spaces that people can go to. Just, it's a similar space to our podcast, I think, where like most people that are going there for pleasure, and they're usually very non-judgmental environments. And I love that for all people over 18.
Awesome. We have another question also about dating, Cari. This is a theme. Just for these two questions, it's a theme. And this question is related also about those tricky ways. How do you have these conversations? Specifically here, how do you have conversations around condom use? How do you advocate for yourself? And at what point do you bring it up? So this is referencing specifically women dating men, although I can imagine some of that would apply to other partnerships.
Yeah, I think there's other conversations around like protection and STIs, like in general for any like gender coupling. That's important. So conversations about condom use, I feel, are like really under discussed. I feel like when we educate young people, we're like really pro condom and we talk about it and we like make sure that they have condoms and all this stuff. But as an adult, I've found that people are not very open about these conversations. And I have had this personal experience, and I've also heard this from a lot of other women, that they've gotten in situations where they either don't feel safe to advocate for themselves to, I don't want to use this word, but enforce and require a man to wear a condom, and gotten tons of resistance from men. And I'm just not going to have sex with you, which is appalling. That's something that I find hard to process as an adult. And I just want to go on record that I think for people with vulvas, it is a fact that there are certain STIs like herpes that are not easy to screen for on a panel, and that seem to statistically be more likely to transmit an infection and outbreak to a person with a vulva than a person with a penis. So when you look at the numbers, it's possible that people with penises can be a carrier of something like herpes without any symptoms or outbreaks and spread it to many people with vulvas and not know. So I think the condom use can be like something that people with vulvas maybe need to be slightly more proactive about than a person with a penis in a heterosexual coupling.
It's very important. Most people with STIs don't know that they have them.
I think there's this idea and stigma that you'll have a bunch of symptoms and you'll know and find out, but we know statistically that's just not true. And STIs, all of them, even if they're not curable, are highly treatable. So it's not great to not know. But about condom use, I have a practical answer, and then I'd love to hear what your answer and some things you researched. So for my female friends, I say go out to the store and buy as many condoms as you can afford and open them and feel them, try them out however you want, with a toy, with a partner, however. Pick your favorite brand and bring them with you. Make yourself a little fun date pack that has your favorite lube, your favorite condom. Have it on hand.
Maybe a sex toy.
Because if that brings you joy and there is a possibility that you might have a pleasurable sexual encounter, I think it's much easier to have the conversation and say, this is what I have and this is what I brought. This is my favorite brand of condoms. I think that's much less likely to halt the sexual encounter than like an awkward fumble to have that conversation, not knowing if your partner showed up with one. There's just so many like what ifs. So if you're prepared and know what you like and can say, I like these ones, it's a much sexier way to have that conversation.
I love that when you are bringing it as a form of pleasure.
Yeah.
Bringing it in that way. That's a really smart way to do that.
I would also find it really flattering if I was a person with a penis that I was like on a date with a woman and she came prepared to have sex with me. That would be like a 10 out of 10 for me. So it's like a compliment. Like, I thought this might end in fun time for both of us.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It speaks to me so much, this and the question before about sex toys, of how much anxiety comes up around dating and how hard that is to manage.
Yeah.
That there's hygiene and safety questions and all these social norms kinds of questions happening at the same time.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this in previous episodes that I think as people, because there aren't a lot of spaces to talk about sex, you go into most like situations thinking most people have your values and your same ideas and your same information. And it's really scary when you find out that they don't. So I think it's valid to have a plan before you need it. Did you find anything else that we didn't talk about condom use? Because it is a broad conversation and that's just my
Whoa, I will tell you, I was looking on Reddit.
Yes.
Good
old Reddit.
I figured this is a question about what most people do. So that's the expert, right? That's where we crowdsource our questions.
Yeah.
And it was hard to find any question that was really addressing this specifically. The closest I got was a question about, is it normal for women to provide condoms in a heterosexual encounter if it's happening in their own home? This particular poster thought the person with the penis should be bringing the condoms. Oh. That was just, if you have a penis, condoms are for penises, or external condoms, I should say, are for penises, and therefore the responsibility of the penis haver. And the general consensus from that Reddit post was that it was not, in fact, the expectation.
I love that could at some point socially be the expectation. And it could be because I'm not a person with a penis, but I wouldn't want to depend on. It would be such a bummer to expect someone to have condoms and expect to have sex and nobody has condoms. That seems like everybody is not getting no fun there.
That is the humorous rom-com scene.
Yeah. That seems like a way to kill the moment.
Definitely.
Awkward trip to Walgreens. It doesn't need to be awkward. Whatever.
Yep.
It could be, though. Especially if...
A quick trip.
A quick trip, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could Instacart them now.
There you go.
I've never looked. I'm going to go home and look.
So we also had a question about menopause.
Ooh, I love this.
And this was just could you talk about menopause on your podcast question? We had a couple of questions from people that were more like, would you please do an episode about this topic? So menopause is one of those. It's a really big one. And we are interested, and we would like to do a full episode on menopause sometime. And hopefully, maybe someday we will be able to have guests who know more than we do about specific topics like this, because we don't know everything. And we are here to share with you what we find out.
Yeah.
But just to put out some basic facts about menopause right now, there's a lot of conversation about this somehow at this point in time.
Yeah.
So maybe a good place to start is just with the definition of menopause. The medical definition is someone who has not had a menstrual period for 12 months. So that's what it means to be in menopause. The average age of menopause in the U.S. is 52.
I just need to pause and say that definition is so unsatisfying to me.
Very.
So I'm just supposed to wait for 12 months and be like, oh, I guess that's it.
So you can wait for a lot longer than this, in fact, Cari, because that's the thing. It is so different from the informal way of using that term.
Yeah.
Right? When someone is going through menopause, what they are really talking about is the medical term for that is actually perimenopause.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. And we are seeing that word get used more often now. Perimenopause is the period before the state of menopause. That can be a few years or many years, depending on an individual body. So it can start as early as your mid-30s. Most of the time, it's sometime in your 40s.
Yeah, so, I hate all of this information, not because you're giving it to me, but because it's really not giving me those guide rails that I want. Your mid-30s to your mid-50s? That's 2 decades, Nina. That
yes, it
could
is.
be 2 decades of symptoms. That is not a satisfying medical definition for me as a person with a uterus. I don't like that. I want more research.
There's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what is happening in perimenopause is that these hormonal fluctuations start to happen, especially estrogen. And, of course, hormones are these powerful little buggers.
They really are.
They influence so much. So perimenopause is a lot like puberty, and in fact sometimes gets called as a kind of second puberty. Except that if you look at the graphs, the estrogen fluctuation for perimenopause are way more extreme
than puberty.
Than for puberty.
Oh my gosh.
You think about all of the changes that someone is going through in puberty in terms of their body shape and their height and their...
I feel like they just gloss over this societally. We've just nobody is talking about this with me.
Yes.
And it's out there, looming.
Yes. Cari, I'm 10 years older than Cari. And Cari, I am seeing in your eyes the experience of, holy crap.
I don't like it. I refute all this information. I don't want it. Take it back.
This is all the reality. Yeah.
Just a couple decades.
So much reality, right? Half of the population has uteruses or vaginas, produces a lot of estrogen, has estrogen fluctuations, and there's so little it's so little talked about.
Yeah.
Compared to puberty, right?
Compared to puberty, and I also feel like, I don't mean I personally feel a sense of shame, but it is menopause. Ugh. That's my feeling, is you're not supposed to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
It's not okay for good company. You can talk about puberty because that's a thing that happens, but menopause, be quiet.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. That's for old women.
That's not polite. Yes. Actually, the point after menopause, that's when your hormone levels they start to even out.
Sounds like a dream.
And in fact, is a really powerful stage of life for many people.
I've heard this.
So something to look forward to.
Sounds wonderful.
Our last topic for today that I hope we will be coming back to again in the future is pelvic floor therapy.
I was so excited to see this on here.
That's so cool. Yeah. And again, like another topic around sexuality, around bodies that makes such a difference in people's lives. And there's so much silence around. So people end up suffering.
Yeah.
Okay, so pelvic floors.
Yeah, tell me what your pelvic floor is. Not yours. What a pelvic floor is.
This is not linoleum versus wood composite.
No.
Yeah. So the pelvic floor refers to the muscles that span the bottom of the pelvis and support the bladder and the bowel. And it also supports the uterus if you have a uterus.
Yeah.
So everyone has pelvic floor muscles.
No matter what their genitals are, we've all got pelvic floor muscles.
Absolutely,
Cool.
yes. We all have bladders. We all have bowels.
We do.
And just like with many muscle groups, and let me tell you, Cari, 40s are a lot of fun. The muscles can become weak, or they might become tight.
I want to just say joke's on you, because I had pelvic floor issues that I did not realize I had after having a baby in my 20s. So I did not escape unscathed.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, childbirth can really bring out a lot of great times.
Yeah.
But also in your 40s.
Also later. Just a smorgasbord of opportunities. If you think about muscle groups change over our lifetime.
Exactly.
They have to be taken care of. Unfortunately, tell myself this every time I make a healthy lifestyle choice, like going to the gym and using my body.
We are all on that journey.
We are.
Yep. And so point that I'm trying to make here is just that things happen and there's no way to really necessarily prevent that.
Yeah.
Because it's just living in a body for all these years. And doing things with your body, like making a child.
Yeah.
So sometimes issues develop with our pelvic floor muscles. And that might lead to bladder control issues. It might lead to bowel control issues. It can sometimes cause a prolapse of pelvic organs, like if the uterus kind of descends or moves out of position in some way. Mm-hmm. So that can be painful. And as well as sexual issues, intercourse issues. People can experience pain during sex. They might experience decreased arousal, erectile dysfunction. Again, this is not specific to one type of equipment or gender. But it's the kind of thing that, again, when we all tend to assume that how our bodies are behaving or how our values are is what is normal, unless we're talking about it and hear that other people are having other experiences. Mm-hmm. It happens too often that people are having issues with their pelvic floor. They're maybe having pain during sex, or they're having erectile issues, and don't realize that this is not the way it has to be. I really have so much sadness for that state, and really hope that if you are listening to this and this is resonating with you in certain ways, that you will be inspired to go get some help.
Yeah, and I just want to share this statistic because I had read it several years ago.
Great.
And I'm going to read it out now. I don't have this topic for people with penises, but ACOG, which is I can't remember, it's obstetrics and gynecology, the American College of Obstetrics. I don't know. It's not college. Sorry, guys. I'll look it up.
ACOG.
ACOG.
So this is an association.
Medical association. Uh-huh. It is college. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists. They are a valid organization. 1 in 4 women in their 40s experiences some degree of pelvic organ prolapse. And 1 in 3 in their 60s are experiencing some degree of pelvic organ prolapse.
Great.
Not everyone has symptoms, but that's caused by a weakened pelvic floor.
A very common problem.
Right. Yep. So common. And I don't ever remember people talking about it with me.
So there's a lot that can happen, and it's important to talk about.
And I would love to do an episode and hear from an expert, because I am not an expert, and I have heard nothing but amazing things. I've heard things like life-changing.
Wow.
In discussing PTs, I think physical therapists and pelvic floor physical therapists are really cool. I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So get help if this is you, and don't suffer alone.
No. Suffer with 1 in 3. No, I'm kidding. Suffer with a third of the population.
With all of your friends.
Totally joking. I don't want anyone to suffer.
There are very simple exercises you can do. If you aren't sure where your pelvic floor muscles are, if you're someone who has a vulva, so your urethra is separate from your penis, or if you don't have a penis, that got complicated unnecessarily. So you can start and stop the flow of pee or of urine. And so that is a kind of contraction of the pelvic floor muscles. If you do have a penis, there's this great phrase, pull your nuts up to your guts.
I love that.
They said. Yes. Can you make your penis and testes lift up without contracting your abs or your glutes? And that is contracting.
Because I was going to ask, how do people with penises find their pelvic floor?
Yeah. I
love that.
So if you just do a few contractions, that is already exercising your pelvic floor muscles. If you have trouble doing those contractions, that is a sign. So even if you're not experiencing pain, but if you try to do those contractions and have trouble, then it is time to talk to a physical therapist or an expert in pelvic floor muscles.
Awesome.
And it can make your life better. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you make all kinds of things better, like a no-brainer win.
All right. That's what we have for today. Please do keep sending in questions. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks, Dinah.
Thanks, Cari.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Don't forget, we would like to hear from you. What do you think of today's episode? What questions or thoughts do you have about sex and sexuality? We will share some questions and replies in a future episode. Write to us at gasppod@gmail.com. That's GASPPOD@gmail.com.
GASP is a joint venture between Dancing Elm Consulting and Cari Hypes.
That's right. And also thank you to Motion Post Inc. for editing, and to the Oak Park Public Library for providing the audio booth.
Thanks also to our sponsor, Oak Park Our Whole Lives. Oak Park Owl delivers comprehensive, inclusive sexuality education to youth and families in the Greater West Side of the Chicagoland area. For more information, check out their website at www.opowl.org.
Take care of yourself and others. Talk to you soon.